All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college basketball. The calendar has shifted to March. Everything's green. There's shamrocks all over the place, maybe even a shamrock shake because those things are delicious. But I'm always joined by my co-host, the man who becomes a huge Ricky Nelson fan because he's a traveling man. We're talking college basketball. Co-host Fresh. How you doing, buddy?
Haps, this is March Madness time. It's basketball, it's buzzer beaters, it's free throws, it's covering the spread. Absolute chaos. This is the 2.5 week, 3 week run that this tournament takes over the world. Is absolutely fantastic, and it just drives everyone's attention and brings us all in. Watching games from noon until God knows when at the end of the night.
Fresh, real quick, man. I got to stop you here real fast. We have breaking news here on the record here, everyone. Hold on. Let me bring this up here. Ladies and gentlemen, I am happy to announce on the Irrational Confidence Podcast for the first time ever, we have a show sponsor. It's an amazing opportunity. We have a show sponsor. We'd like to welcome our first sponsor, Champs Sports Pool. So if you're get ready for the ultimate March Madness experience with Champs Sports Pools, are you feeling the March Madness fever? Dive into the heart of the action with our thrilling bracket challenge that starts right at the Sweet 16. This is your chance to showcase your college basketball expertise, make your picks, and battle it out for college basketball supremacy, all for free. Here's how it works. Enter for free. There's no cost, no catch. Sign up and submit your bracket for the Sweet 16 stage of the March Madness tournament. It's your shot at glory and a piece of the basketball frenzy without spending a dime. You win big, stay ahead of the game, predict outcomes, and you could be walking away with a whopping $1,000 prize. That's right. Predict the champion and the path they take to victory, and the cash could be yours. You could double the fun. Want to increase your chances? Easy. Host your own bracket pool on champsportspool.com and snag an additional free entry fee. Gather your friends, family, or even your coworkers and enjoy the madness together. It's a win-win situation. More fun for everyone and a second shot for you at that grand prize. Details can be found at champsportspools.com/spinnable. That is champsportpools.com/spinnable. And let the games begin.
So awesome to have Champ Sports Pools as a partner with us. Really appreciate their expertise and their involvement and their confidence in us. And y'all, please go to their website, /spinnable at the end, champsportspools/spinnable, and join the fun. It's time for March Madness. We're really excited. And you know what? That's a nice little decent prize there. $1,000 if you pick the winner and get all the way to the championship and get the title.
Right, Fresh. And this is the crazy thing. When I was working on this read, I'm sitting there going, everyone runs a bracket pool. And again, you run on all the other sites out there, and yeah, so be it. Wonderful, great. It's free and it makes it easy, what have you. But this is the one where you can run a free bracket pool, and then on top of it, you get an opportunity to win money yourself. So, but yeah, make sure you guys check that out. It's an awesome opportunity.
It's a win-win, no entry fee, get your cash if you can get yourself from the 16 all the way to the championship and cut down the nets.
So here's what we're going to do for today, Fresh. We're going to help everyone out. You're going to join in on this pool. You're going to give yourself an opportunity for $1,000. Fresh and I decided that we were going to give you guys some teams to watch going into the March Madness tournament. Now, folks, it's easy. Everyone wants to talk about the favorite teams. You want to talk about your Houstons. You want to talk about your Connecticuts. You want to talk about your Purdues. And I never trust Purdue. That's just me, but I never trust Purdue. What we want to do is give you guys some underdog sleeper teams. Teams that, if you're entering into the pool, you might be seeing these teams right there at the Sweet 16 bracket. How they're going to get there, what are their strengths, and what might be their Achilles heel that might do them in if they're not careful. Each one of these teams, Fresh and I were both pretty excited about. We got 4 of them for you. So, Fresh, I'm going to let you go first. What's one of the teams that you're watching right now that you're excited about for March Madness that could make a run in the tournament?
Well, one team that I'm really looking at, South Florida, USF. They were the American champions this year. They've they were under the radar very beginning of the start of the season, sort of worked themselves through and put together a great run through the conference. Beat Florida State early on. They beat Memphis when they were ranked. They beat FAU, who was the darling last year and has a lot of returning players this year. And they beat Charlotte twice, who's like third or fourth in the conference right now. And they beat SMU, who had a solid season last year. They've shown they can handle it. And just the resurgence, we've seen other programs sort of just be the mediocre and sort of make that one run. And this team appears so far this season has a special feeling to it where they're getting it done. You look at, they're really led by their defense. They're allowing 68.3 points per game. That's fourth in the conference. And opponents are shooting only 41.5% from the field and 31% from three. So they're really becoming much more productive on the defensive end, creating more turnovers, which they've actually forced 13 a game, and getting some rebounds, preventing, forcing bad shots. And that's how you kind of win in any kind of basketball game, much less in a tournament when you have a 6-game stretch. You get a day between games to sort of keep going. Your defense has to be able to travel. You got to be able to lock down the defensive end and then make shots as you go from there. And this team right now is built defensively, and they go forward on that regard. And they're really they're led by Chris Youngblood, the guard. He's averaging 15.5 points a game, shooting 82.2% from the free throw line. So if he's fouled, it's basically a point. Put it on the board if he's getting in the charity stripe. He's also shooting 42.8% from three, and he's averaging about 30 minutes a game, 29.8, but you round it to 30. So he's on the court almost the entire time. The real key is if he gets in foul trouble, that's where USF's going to find some problems later on because he's so consistent and so dominant on the offensive end and really the leader of that entire attack. Overall, USF is averaging 75.5 points per game, and they're shooting 36.7% from three. So the 3-point shot on the offensive side of it is not the full force from their offensive attack, but it does provide some consistency, and it gives them some of that way to sort of making some runs and cutting into the opponent and building up some of them leads and moving forward. And if you kind of caught on there, giving up 68, scoring 75 a game, they're winning basically by 7 points. Those threes, a couple of them in the ball game, are really the separation that they're finding in some of those runs early on to give them a chance to win. This team hasn't been truly battle tested. They haven't played a lot of elite teams. Memphis is very, very good. Beating them is definitely, a positive and a feather in their cap, as well as beating FAU. So you kind of, as the tournament goes, the one Achilles heel that I kind of see from this team is how ready are they for a much more an elite perspective. And now they're expected to win. You win the conference in the regular season. When you come into the NCAA tournament, the expectation is a little higher as a conference champion to take to the next level, to win at least one game, potentially two, and get yourself to the Sweet 16. So how does this team that has slowly built their record up and gotten confidence now perform with expectations at a real high level to win and to win impressively? So that's one slight Achilles heel I see from them, is how they're going to handle the success and how they react to it. When looking at their projected seed, they can, again, the strength of record, not as many quad one wins. So that does kind of have a hit to them. And the conference overall, the American, was a little less this year, especially losing Houston to the Big 12. So they're I kind of see them in a 9 to 11 range, somewhere in there. I don't really if they get 8 seed, I think that's because they go through maybe the conference tournament and win in impressive fashion. And you have some other teams sort of bounce out. But a 9 to 11 range from their seed projected is where I kind of feel they're going to be.
Listen, I'm intrigued to see what the Bulls do over there, Fresh. What type of team would you not want to see them run up against?
I would not want to go up against a team that really relies on the three, because if you get lost in those transitions, if you're giving up possessions against a team that's from pretty solid defensive end, it does create sort of an avalanche. Obviously, they're a very good free throw shooting team. You start getting late in the ball game, you get opponents in foul trouble. Teams that are not disciplined will become succumb and overwhelmed by this USF team. So you be able to maximize your opportunities, don't foul, and make sure if you're going to shoot the three, you hit it, and don't give up those opportunities, and don't get empty possessions.
Okay. All right, Fresh. Well, my first team that I'm looking at, I want to take a long, hard look at the Dayton Flyers right now. Dayton Flyers are in the A-10, and there's a lot to like about this team. I know a couple of years ago, Dayton made a little bit of a run. They've been in and out of the back half at the top 25, but there's a lot of things to like when you're looking for teams that are going to be able to do something in March Madness. There are some specific statistics that I am always kind of examining to find my sleeper teams, and this is just a good way to put it. Dayton right now is one of 5 teams that shoots over 40% from behind the arc. And that is huge, because if you're able to shoot 40% from behind the arc, you are, one, able to build a really big lead early on and you can play from ahead, and you're truly never out of a game as well. Like if a team jumps out to 10, 12 point lead, but you're able to shoot the 3, you're able to come back in the second half. The other thing that's really impressive about Dayton right now is the fact that they are shooting over 60% from 2 as well. So if you're looking around the basket and what they're able to do, this is a really good shooting team. And I'll actually go back a little bit. You'll see a common thread with some of the teams I was looking at this week. Kobe Bray is shooting almost 50% from behind the arc. He is their best shooter from long range. This kid could be one of those moments in the tournament. If this kid gets hot, he can make a run. This kid is the ability, and he's not their top scorer. He's not their top player by any stretch of the imagination. But he's the type of player that if he gets hot and goes on a streak during those few weeks in March, all of a sudden, Dayton's not looking at just the Sweet 16. They could be looking at as late as the Elite Eight or, and again, this is getting a little crazy, or a stretch run all the way into the Final Four there. You have 6 players that have the ability to score on this team there. They're a matchup nightmare with 6'10" DaRon Holmes II. The only question I have for them, and I went back and I looked at a game, they beat LSU early on in the year at LSU. Now, LSU is a middle-of-the-road SEC team this season. They're just slightly above 500. Holmes didn't have a great game in that one. His teammates picked him up. That's my Achilles heel with him. He is a matchup nightmare. He's huge. He's got the ability to score from anywhere on the court. If he has a bad game, will the rest of the Flyers step up to win them a game, especially in the first round, and make a run into that Sweet 16? Because I have them anywhere from a 6 to 9 seed, so that could get them real interesting. If they're in that 8-9 line, and I don't think they'd be that low. I think they'd be probably closer to that 6-7 line. But if they're in that 8-9 line for some reason, and you got to go against the number 1 seed, the second day of the first weekend, it could be a hard one for them.
I mean, I love what Dayton's done. They've been able to progress into the season, and they're always that kind of team that's had that basketball prowess. You mentioned Holmes there. He has definitely been a leader. In the A-10, you look at all the scoring and all the offensive statistics, he's definitely up there in the top, and he's the leader of that team. The one thing that kind of worries me when you have a team that has such a focal point of one player, you mentioned it, if foul trouble comes into play, who's going to step up and take it over in a tournament game? It's not like the regular season, folks. Obviously, you should know that by now, where you don't have the next game to sort of get your stuff together. You can throw one away and readdress where you're at. You got one and done, and you got to make every single game count. And you really only have 6 to make a run. So make sure you're squared up. Make sure your team's out of foul trouble, or you manage your situation the best you possibly can and protect your star players and hope that they deliver in the end.
All right, Fresh, who you got for a second team to take a look at?
This team's out of the Big East, the Creighton Blue Jays. What Coach McDermott's done there, obviously he's been there for a long, long time, built programs up. He had his son, Doug McDermott, become a major scoring threat, especially from beyond the arc, and got drafted by the Bulls a few years back. But this team right here has been brewing for a couple seasons, and now they've finally shown up, and they're getting it done. It's a very top-heavy league, the Big East. It's not like the back in the day where the Syracuses, the Georgetowns, where it was truly legit basketball. But the quality at the very top is very extremely high when you have UConn, Creighton, and Marquette. This team right here, they've beaten Alabama, which is a very, very good team in the SEC. They've beaten Providence when they were ranked. They beat UConn already this season, and they've beaten Marquette. So they have some quality quad 1 wins on this team, and they've shown they can get it done. They are a very high-scoring team, a very fast-playing team. The Blue Jays right now are second in the Big East, scoring 81.2 points a game, just second to UConn. And they're 4th in points allowed per game in the conference at 69.5. So there's definitely a 12-point, I'm just going to round up, 12-point differential in what they average scoring and what they average giving up. They're definitely crushing a lot of the other opponents when they get into these games. So they have a tendency to get out fast and run. They shoot really, really, really well. 49.1% from the field, and they're second only to UConn in the Big East in that perspective, and also very, very solid from beyond the arc. They know how to deliver. They're very seasoned. This entire team has been around each other for a while, so they understand where each other are on the court offensively and defensively. So when you get in these big games where it's more of knowing where to be, knowing how to place yourself, how to pass off, who you're covering, those key situations are in play, and that's where veteran teams come in and have success in the tournament. They have 4 studs that play a ton of minutes. Baylor Shinerman, Trey Alexander, Ryan Kalker-Brennan, and Stephen Ashworth all average 30-plus minutes, and that actually might be the all-names team, by the way, for the tournament, those 4 starters. Shinerman and Alexander are 3rd and 5th in the Big East in points per game. Shinerman also leads the Big East in made threes per game with 3.1, so he's definitely very proficient from beyond the arc. Creighton center Ryan Kalker-Brennan, as of March 4th, statistically, 33.5 minutes a game, 17.2 points per game, 7.3 rebounds per game, 3.8 blocks per game, which leads the Big East, and shooting 65.2% from the field and 70% from the charity stripe. He is a definite threat down low. He provides an inside-outside game when you have great guard play in the center down low. Definitely is going to be a factor. You're going to probably have to rotate 2 centers against him to cover definitely with fouls and rebounding to help make up for it, because if he's not contained, he will take over a ball game. Now, as dominant as those 4 guys are, that's actually my Achilles heel potentially for this team, is that you have your majority of your minutes are from 4 players, each averaging 30-plus. The bench has not been tested and not have to really log too much minutes in big games when teams, and especially significant players of these guys, get in foul trouble or are out for a stretch of time. How can the bench get better and be ready to be called upon if 1 or 2 of those guys late in the first half has to sit out the last 3 or 4 minutes, maybe has to sit out a 3 or 4 minute stretch in the middle of the second half to keep them alive for the late in the ball game? How does the bench keep the team afloat in a big game and be able to move forward and get them to victory? That's the one thing I'm kind of worried about. How does Coach McDermott work this bench and keep them ready to go in those peak moments where they might have issues with playing time from their studs? See projection from this team. If they have a run in the Big East tournament and they win the conference tournament or even play for the title, they could potentially be a 2 seed depending on action around the country. I think the lowest they could fall is a 4 seed, so they're in that 2 to 4 seed range. This is a very, very quality program, and I think they're actually going to be able to progress a little bit farther in the Big East tournament and help their seeding, because Tyler Kolek for Marquette is out and probably not going to play in the conference tournament. So that stud player for Marquette lessens their chances and allows Creighton to have a better chance of making the championship game and potentially winning a Big East title. But this team is very, very good, and they're going to be lethal if you get them in March.
Creighton's been one of those programs that it felt like they kind of came out of nowhere a few years ago, but have hung around. To quote the great John Malkovich, they got alligator blood. Can't get rid of them. McDermott's done a great job, again, using his son there, but McDermott's done a great job as a coach developing that program as well. Fresh, I'm going to go for my next team. I'm going over to the Ivy League. And the reason I'm going to go over to the Ivy League, and this team right now, when I'm looking at, is a very interesting team because it's kind of hard to peg them exactly where they're going to fall seeding wise in the tournament. I've seen anywhere from a 14 seed down to a 10 seed, and that's the Princeton Tigers. The reason I'm going over to the Ivy League, folks, is that many years ago, someone really pointed out to me, I was watching Cornell play here in Jacksonville, and one of the things that they point out with the Ivy League teams is that how disciplined those teams are. Those kids are highly intelligent. They're going to run a very structured offense. They're going to do the right thing. They're going to play defense. They're going to protect the basketball. And I started digging into Princeton. They're only one of 3 teams in the entire country with less than 8 turnovers a game. Now, the problem with Princeton is their rebounding. Again, as a person who looks at the outliers in basketball, and that there are certain things that in basketball that kind of show you where there could be a problem for a team, rebounding is one of those areas. Now, if you have a team that's a really great defensive rebounding team but don't get a lot of offensive rebounds, that's okay. It's not as bad. But Princeton is a team that only gets about 25, 26 rebounds a game. And that's always really concerning to me. But that's when the turnover thing comes into play, because Princeton protects their possessions. Try saying that 3 times fast. Princeton protects their possessions. And they also stay out of foul trouble. So those guys that, as Fresh was talking there about Creighton and teams gaining foul trouble and having other guys having to play a large quantity of minutes, Princeton does a really good job of keeping their best players out of foul trouble. They're led by great guard and wing play. They have a senior-led guard there that is going to be in charge. They're not great from the 3, but they're good enough. They take more 3s than they do 2s in a game. They are shooting about 35% from behind the arc. That's okay, especially in the college game. You would love for that number to be right around 37, 38 would be a little bit better. But they do well from behind the arc that they can put it up. They can beat a team with that. I am a little concerned. They are slightly undersized in the post. They don't have a lot of real big guys down there. So this team is going to have to do exactly what I said. They're going to have to be disciplined. They're going to have to protect the basketball. And they're going to have to shoot a little bit better from behind the arc. They're an 80% foul shooting team. So if you're trying to, foul late in the game and get them to miss some of them, good luck. Princeton's pretty lights out from the line. So I really like this Tigers team. I'd be interested to see, because Pennsylvania's got a shot to win that league. I think the Ivy League is one of the first ones that gives their automatic qualifier, though.
Do you think if Princeton makes it in, they've already had everyone's attention by what they did last year, and they won't be able to surprise and creep up on someone and get taken more seriously from preparation perspective?
Possibly. It depends on their matchup there. I mean, if they're getting one of like the big boys, I think the lower to their seed, I think that they'll be taken very seriously. If they're sitting there going like a 6-11 game, while yes, they're not going to sneak up on whoever the 6th seed is. Let's say, I'm just picking someone. Let's say it's San Diego State here. San Diego State, they know what Princeton does. San Diego State did them themselves of making a run to the finals last year. I just think that in that situation, the talent gap is much smaller. I think the real time about sneaking up on somebody would actually be in the second round for them.
Okay, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So.
All right, everyone. Get ready for the ultimate March Madness experience with Champ Sports Pools. Why choose Champ Sports Pools? Free entry, absolutely no entry fee, but all the excitement. Massive prize, a generous $1,000 for the winner. Community and competition. Hosting your own pool, bring people together and intensify the competition. Simplicity. Easy to enter, fun to play, and all online. We made it hassle-free to participate and track your progress. Don't miss out. This March, make every game count, whether you're a seasoned bracketologist like Seth or I, or this is your first dance. Champ Sports Pools welcomes you to the center of March Madness excitement. Remember, the more the merrier, so invite your friends and join in on the action. Are you ready to take the challenge? Head on over to champsportspools.com/spinnable now and let the games begin.
Man, it's so awesome that we're at this point. Who would have guessed 3 years ago when we started this podcast and all this, we did this for fun, and now we get an opportunity to promote a website like champsportspools.com and have people have an opportunity to join in a really cool contest that starts. You don't have to start from the 64 spot where if your champion loses in the first round, you're out of your pool. This is 16 teams. It's a little more high stakes. There's a huge prize. That's awesome that they're doing that. Plus, it's free, guys. It's free. So it's just awesome opportunity. Go check them out, champsportspools.com. It's a really cool opportunity. We love it. Thank you so much to them for sponsoring the podcast, and we really are appreciating having them as a partner for this March Madness season.
Yeah, isn't the most brutal thing is like, you know what, I'm going to have Kansas go win it all this year, and they get upset in the second round, and you're kind of like, well, yep, I'm done. You already know one of your four is empty to sitting out, and it's just having that Sweet 16 start and being ready to go and run from there. You've evaluated the teams, you're ready to go, and you kind of know, all right, I just need 4 games, not 6. I kind of understand the matchups, you kind of understand the strategy, or the teams are playing, injuries, all that stuff in there. And this right here allows you to make that a shorter journey to cutting down the nets and win a prize.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the best 3 weeks of the year for me. I love March Madness, man. I mean, I love football. Don't get me wrong, everyone. I love college football, but basketball has always been like my favorite sport to watch, and something that I might not have had it athletically, but I always felt like I had it between the ears on that one. So, Fresh, let's get back to some of these teams that we may see in that Sweet 16 here. You got a third team for us to watch here?
I do, and it pains me to say it as a Georgia fan, but I got my eye on the Tennessee Volunteers. I mean, in the past, they've had their clunkers and they've lost in the tournament when they, shouldn't have and had unexpected, shortcomings. But this team just has a different feel around it. 24-6, regular season SEC champions. And you kind of look back at the wins they've had, the progress they've made season from November at the very beginning all the way to where we are here now, March. They've beaten Illinois, which is a very good team out of the Big Ten. They've beaten Wisconsin, another solid team out of the Big Ten, which has had a more of a lower end lately, but they've been pretty solid. They beat Ole Miss, who was ranked at the time. They beat the Florida Gators, who are a pretty solid team. They've beaten Alabama twice, who's been pretty solid. Beaten Kentucky, beaten South Carolina, and beaten Auburn. And honestly, if you kind of look at it, the SEC, top to bottom, and in the Big 12 have been the 2 best basketball conferences. 1 and 2, I think the third best is probably the Mountain West this year. And have the success, they've been able to sustain it from start to finish, and be very, very solid in every game they go into them. So this team has the pedigree and the resume so far. And you also kind of look at this time of year, where are your losses? We all talk about quad 4 losses, which are bad losses, but you also have some good losses. They lost to Purdue and Kansas when they both were top 3 teams in the country, lost to UNC and lost to South Carolina when they were ranked. The first 3, Purdue, Kansas, and North Carolina, were all losses in November and all by single digits. So teams have obviously grown since November to March, but you're close then. That success, those games then, have you learned from them, ready to have potential matchups again in March and to take it to the next step and potentially win those. You play those kind of celebrity or those big matchups early. You get yourself a feet wet. You test your team. You find out who you are, and you hope that next time you face one of those teams potentially, you show up in a better range. So they have a lot under their belt. They're battle tested. They're scoring 80.2 points per game, which is actually 5th in the SEC, which shows you there's a lot of scoring going on in that league. They're only shooting 45.2% from the field, which is 7th in the league. So they're actually not the best offensive team. Their defensive side is where they've actually made their meat and been able to sustain success. Allowing 67.1 points per game. Opponents are shooting a lowly 38.3% from the field, and opponents are shooting 30.6% from 3. Their defense has been locked down on that end, forcing bad shots, forcing turnovers, and obviously getting defensive rebounds and turning those into transition points. Tennessee guard Dalton Knecht, as of March 7th, 29.6 minutes per game, 20.7 points per game, 4.8 rebounds, 40.6% from 3, 47.3% from the field, and shooting 76.3% from the charity stripe. Definitely the leader. He's in the conversation right now for a player of the year. That's how dominant he's been on the court and really leading this volunteer attack. As much success as this team has had and how dangerous they can potentially be, the potential Achilles heel I have for them is they're not scoring consistently, and that's where the losses come in, when their team is not actually on their game on the offensive end. They have 6 total losses right now as we record on the 8th of March, I believe this is. Yep. In 5 of those, they've scored 72 or less points. In those games that they've scored 72 or less, they shot 45.8%, and that was the 72-point affair, 37.1, 36.2, 31%, and 33%. So when they are not shooting, the defense obviously is not making up for it. They're getting beaten in the transition game. They're giving up free throws because they're being behind. They're kind of straggling. The offense has to be able to score consistently and allow the defense to suffocate and force the opponent into bad shots. If they're not getting their offensive buckets, or they're struggling giving up empty possessions, the defense in transition is getting beat from time to time and allowing them to have to play catch-up where they don't want to run. They want to dictate the pace and let the defense suffocate, as opposed to getting in a running affair and having one trip opportunities with no points. So Tennessee's got to be able to find their shooting touch and be able to get consistent with that to avoid a letdown. Because like you said, this is a one and done. If you don't get that game and you don't get that dub, you're not moving on. You don't have the next game on Tuesday night or Thursday night or Saturday afternoon to make up for it and get better. You've got to be on your game the entire time. Expectations for a conference champion are very high. So you've got to be locked in on both ends of the court and take advantage of the opportunity when it's presented to you. This team, if they make a run in the SEC tournament and other things happen and shake out, they could potentially squeak in and get the 4th 1 seed. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that they're going to be in a battle. They might not get that 1, but I definitely think they're a lock for a 2, worst case a 3 seed. But this Tennessee Volunteer team is going to be in a pretty good situation come Selection Sunday and going forward from there.
Yeah, Fresh, you know me. Any excuse that I have to sing Rocky Top. No, I won't do it today. Listen,
Make
anytime,
my ears bleed.
I know. It happens with all of that. Tennessee's an interesting team. You know, they've it's like that sleeping giant. You're waiting for it to be the year that they make the strong run into the Final Four and just they've won some games in the tournament, and I've always wanted them to have a run where they just beat the brakes off of people one round after another. And this may be the year. Maybe this is the year that we see Tennessee actually come through and do that. Again, only time will tell. We'll find out whether or not what we're going to have with them here coming up here shortly.
Our boy Simmons will be definitely happy if they pull one out.
Yeah,
but we do know Tennessee has not played in the College World Series, has not played in a college football playoff game, and they have not played in a Final Four from the men's side. So they hopefully they never break through, but this might be the case they finally break through.
I want to break through. All right, Fresh. All right, I got one. I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path on this one, but I'm going to do it for the great Larry Bird wearing jersey number 33. No, I'm not talking about the Boston Celtics at all. I'm talking about the Indiana State Sycamores. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, not the Hoosiers, the Sycamores. They're incredible. I love this team. All right, right now, most brackets are projecting them at a 10-12 seed. This team is dangerous as all get out. They would be probably my choice for that 5-12. If I'm filling out a bracket and you're going to have one of those 5-12 or 4-13 or 6-11 upsets there, Indiana State would be my first choice for them to pull off that upset. They are the best, and I mean the very best, shooting team in the entire tournament there. They're shooting over 38% from behind the arc, and they have 5 players that are scoring over 12 points a game. It is death by 1,000 cuts with them. They have some guys who will score a little bit more, but it's not where you shut down 1 or 2 players and try to force everyone to beat you. You do the Jordan rules, or, we're talking about Indiana State, the Larry Bird rules. We'll let Larry get his, but we'll shut down everyone else. You're not going to be able to do that. You got guys that can score on this team. Out of those 5 players that are averaging over 12 points a game, you take a look at them. 4 out of the 5 players are shooting over 37% from behind the arc. This is a really, really dangerous team. A couple of the things that scare me with them is that 4 out of their 5 losses right now have come on the road. They're a great team at home. They get that home court advantage. They get a little bit of home cooking there in Indiana State. But when they go on the road, it's a little bit different of a team. Not a lot different, but a little bit different of a team. They had a big win against Toledo. Toledo looks like they're going to be the class of the MAC right now. And also, this team is really only 6 players deep. Once you get past that 6 man on the bench, there's a noticeable drop-off in production. There's a noticeable drop-off in playing time. They don't really go past that 6 spot there as well. So these guys are going to log a lot of minutes in for this. They could be a team that pulls off the upset, but then the next one, everyone's going to be, let's jump on the Indiana State bandwagon. And they got the talent to make a run here. They shoot too well. They're too good of an offensive team to let that limit them. But it could be a team that, because they can only go 6 deep, because you can't get guys extended rest, you start to wear out a little bit and get tired legs. So I got Indiana State, man. I'm excited for this team. Can't wait to watch them.
What are your thoughts on Rex Specs?
Say it again.
What are your thoughts on Mr. Rex Specs? Dominant center. He's just been a baller. He's, very dominant down low, great from the free throw line, amazing rebounder.
Robbie?
There's the look, it's just, you kind of have that. You're like, that guy doesn't have game. And that guy just takes you, to the hole and you're like, okay, he dominated me. He dunked it on my butt and, or he's blocking my shot or he's, shooting from mid-range jumpers. And that gets your attention real quick that guy can play. He can play with anybody in the country.
Right. He's a 6'10" center that shoots almost 40% from behind the arc. He's got that whole stretch thing with him. And, years ago we really talked about like a stretch four, and a stretch four can be just lights out. If you have a solid stretch four who's a guy 6'9", 6'10", and usually in college that's probably about the limitation of a four. Any guys that go above that, they'll usually throw him at the center position. But a guy that can pop himself out and run, everyone, you run a pick and roll. But you run especially with a big guy, and run a pick and pop with him where he's able to get a smaller guard on him and can shoot right over him at 6'10" and shoot at a 40% clip from behind the arc. Kid's dangerous as all get out. Robbie is phenomenal with that part as well. Interesting that he's not one. I would expect him to be the leading rebounder, but he's not. It's actually a guard that's a leading rebounder on their team. But even someone like Conwell and Swoops, you take a look at the two of them, of what they're able to do. This team, again, you don't want to get behind Indiana State, because if you don't play from ahead against them, it's going to be a very difficult road to hoe to get past them.
Yeah, and they're a disciplined program. And when you have so much on your starting five and then one guy off the bench, it is a lot entrusted on a limited number of players. So that means they understand each other. They're well versed in how to get through a ball game and how to manage the minutes, manage possessions, and wear the opponent down from start to finish.
Yeah, outside of their 6-man fresh, the next guy is only averaging about 12 minutes a game. So,
yeah, that's very limited.
Yeah, it's a tough one. All right, Fresh, give me one more team. Give me one more team we got here.
One more team for me. In football, we talk a lot about the Iowa Hawkeyes, but basketball season, we're talking about the Iowa State Cyclones. This program, it doesn't matter who the head coach is. They rotated them all through, but their success, they play the same way, defense heavy. They find some shooters who could dominate late in ball games, and they're relentless. They wear you down. They're relentless, just like a Cyclone is on the prairie there, and they find ways to win ball games in the best basketball conference in the country, the Big 12, and they do it year in and year out. This year, they have wins versus the Houston Cougars, who are 1 or 2, depending on which one you want to look at. TCU, they beat twice, both when they were ranked. Beat Kansas when they were ranked. Beat Texas Tech. They beat BYU when they were ranked. They have significant quad 1 wins on their resume, and there's a reason why they're a top 10 team. The 6 losses as of March 4th, 5 were to ranked opponents at the time of the game. Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Baylor, Houston, and BYU. So if you're not one of the elites of the elites, you're probably going to just might as well chalk up an L, don't even show up. The Cyclones got you taken care of for the afternoon. They're led by their defense, allowing 62 points a game, second only to Houston in the Big 12. Opponents are only shooting 40% from the field, and the Cyclones are forcing a whopping 17.9 turnovers a game. It means that defense is suffocating. They are getting into passing lanes. They are poking around. They're getting the ball. They are not allowing you to have the entry passes in or get any free clearance and movement. They are on you 24/7 the entire time you're down there for that shot clock. And that's right there. That wears you down. You get frustrated with your passing lanes not being there. You get frustrated not seeing a shot, whether it's, shot clock violations, whether it's bad passes, misreading it. This is what they do, and they mentally are much more tougher than you as the game wears on. And that's where the turnovers continue to keep progressing and accumulate. The Cyclones on the offense, they aren't terrible. They're scoring 76.3 points a game, shooting 46.3% from the field and 34.9% from beyond the arc. So they have some key players that can score to match with that defense. So they're very balanced on both ends. Guard Keyshawn Gilbert leads the team with 13.6 points per game and is shooting 44% from the field. So they don't have a dominant player who's going to be the number one guy averaging 17 or 18 points. Like I said, Gilbert only averaging 13 points a game, but it's a well balanced. They spread the minutes across the entire team. It's a very deep bench, and they all contribute. They're not really relying on one player who really is going to have to carry them for 18, 20 points a game. They find it, they built the depth, and then allows them to rotate players, keep them, energized, keep them ready for a full 40 minutes on the court. One potential Achilles heel that I kind of see from them potentially late in the game is their free throw shooting and their rebounding. 69.2% from the free throw line is 12th in the Big 12. Now, folks, there are 14 teams in the Big 12 now, so don't let the number confuse you. They aren't dead last, but they're pretty low. And they average only 34.4 rebounds a game, which is also 12th in the Big 12. They're not winning the boards, and they're not hitting from the free throw line. The turnovers in the transition game is where they're getting a lot of their points. So if you can wear them down and you force them and you dominate them in the lane and don't allow them to get an extra possession, that's probably how you're going to win. And if you also don't feel bad about fouling them late, that's how you're going to extend the ball game. So in this right here, from a betting perspective, an over-under, a point situation, expect if these are close games, they could get dragged out because they're going to start fouling Iowa State, dragging them out, forcing them to miss shots, and then create additional opportunities for them to score points and get back into it. So keep that in mind if you're looking at them. Overall, this seems very solid. If they win the Big 12 tournament, I think that might get them to a 2 seed in the line, but I think they're going to be more of a 3 or 4 seed range from my perspective. But they're going to be well entrenched high in that bracket and looking to make some noise and potentially get to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, and maybe even beyond.
Fresh, I love this Iowa State team. I love the defense that they play. I was going to have them as one of my teams, but we kind of compared a little bit of notes that so we weren't just repeating some of the same teams. But the thing that scares me is that Iowa State in a couple of games this season have jumped out to nice leads, but then all of a sudden have really had a hard time in the second half of a football or a basketball game, football game. Oh my goodness. But where they start to really, they're not able to score like they've done before, and that defense becomes a little more stressed out. So I'll be interested to see if they can stay a whole 40-minute type of team there. But you take a look at some of their losses this season, and it's really been the tale of one quarter or one half they played really, really well, and then the next half they kind of, not so great.
And usually those are either in a hostile environment or playing at home there at Iowa State, which is a great, intimidating affair. How are they going to do in those neutral site situations where if you're the higher ranked team, as we've known, we've been to multiple tournament games where you're the higher ranked team, that crowd, they go pro for the,
right.
If you're a 4, they go for that 13 seed. If you're that 5 seed, they're going for the 12, and it becomes a road affair. You've got to be able to block out the noise, and take advantage of and just drive it home your own business and not let that environment, let the energy feed and grow for the opponent.
Right. All right, Fresh. My last team, I'm going with the Florida Gators out of the SEC. Right now, I'm looking at the tournament projections. They are mocked anywhere from a 5 seed to a 7 seed. This is the top rebounding team in the country. And folks, let me tell you here, rebounding in the tournament is so unbelievably important. One, you get a one-shot possession. These offenses are great. You get some really talented players. But if you can limit a team to a lot of one-shot possessions and you're not giving teams second chances, you're going to put yourself in a really good position. The thing with Florida is that they do the opposite to other teams. They're one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country, and they're a high level of a pace team there. They're getting up 66 field goal attempts a game. They're 7th in the nation in free throw attempts. That means that they're getting a lot of shots on basket. Okay? They talk about in hockey, one of the biggest stats is shots on goal. And while Florida doesn't have this unbelievable field goal percentage that shows they can run teams out of the building, you take a look at this Gators team, and it is really quantity. They are just going to try to beat you into submission because if they get hot, things could get very ugly. You take a look at what they did to Alabama this year. They beat Alabama in Gainesville, so there is a grain of salt to take with it. But you take a look; they put up 100 points in that game. They have a couple of 100-point games already on the season, and then they have other games that are in the 90s. This team is a fast-paced team. They're going to play quick. They're going to get as many opportunities at the basket as well. You really got to be able to run with them. Are you able to keep up with their offensive output? And again, because they're so good on the offensive glass, because they're so good on the defensive glass, you got to shoot a higher field goal percentage because of that. And if you don't, it's going to be very hard to knock them off. This is a team that if they're sitting at a 5, 6, 7 seed, I would tell a lot of people they're underrated. And as much as, I'm not a huge fan of Florida for football, I've always thought what they do in basketball, I differentiate between the two. But what they do in basketball, it's a great program. It's a great environment in the Dome down there in Gainesville. Walter Clayton Jr. has played very, very well for them this year. You got Zion pulling over there. He's shooting over 43% from behind the arc, almost 44%. He is the straw that stirs the drink in pulling there. So I like him a lot. Great at getting the ball to the scorers on the outside, but he's able to step up when needed the most as well. This is a team that also takes care of the basketball. They protect it. I'm really high on the Gators going into this tournament. I think that they're a scary, sneaky team and probably are going to get a much lower rating than they should.
I mean, there's been multiple times. It pains me to say this team has been very surprising. I don't think anyone expected it, and they've just exploded on the scene with an amazing team this year. But there's been multiple times throughout the year where they've been down by double digits, 14, 16, 20, late first half, early second half, and they've come back and won by 8, 10. They don't give up. They're not intimidated by the environment. You got to play the full time. You cannot let your guard down on them. If you have a lead, assume it's tied or assume you're down and keep attacking because they are not going to let up. And that's where, maybe it's conditioning part where they play so fast that eventually you just sort of wear yourself down, or they just shoot, and they just don't care. And if it goes in, it starts dropping in like you're shooting into an ocean. You just got to play the full time and just have a stronger mentality to withstand any kind of rush they're going to give you late.
Yeah, you can't, and with them, you can't be standing on the beach and not be able to hit water. If you're shooting like that, that gator is going to come right out of that water and completely snatch and drag and drown your tournament dreams real quick. This is a scary team, Fresh. Like, this is a team that could be really, really scary, and they have the ability to beat anybody in the tournament. So these are just some teams that we're watching here, folks. These are 4 teams that we didn't want to just preview the top teams in the tournament right now because you're getting ready for the bracket. You're getting ready for your pool. You're checking out champsportspools.com. And before you head out of here, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell because we have all this other content coming your way. We just dropped an interview with the wide receivers coach from Eastern Washington University, one of our best episodes we have ever done. The dude was just a complete wealth of football knowledge. So if you love college football, you want to hear what it's like to play in the Big Red over there at Eastern Washington University, check that episode out. We got draft coverage coming up for you. We're going to be along with you the entire ride through the March Madness tournament right now. And we got more things, and we will record on Selection Sunday, breaking down each region for you, helping you fill out your pools, and make sure you go back and visit that hostile takeover if you're looking for something different as well. Guys, make sure you're checking out spinnablesports.com. Leave us a comment down below. Let us know how we did. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Interact with us on social media. Special thanks to our producer, Drew. Without him, none of this is possible, so we want to send a shout-out to him. We want to send a shout-out to all of our sponsors. Please make sure you go and support them. They're the reason we do what we do around here. It's great. It's March Fresh. I'm fired up, and it's 11 o'clock at night right now. I'm a little sleepy, but I am so excited because I got to get my body ready for those late 10:30 games for the tournament in that first round, Fresh. Let's go.
This is training period for us, ready for basketball tournament coming down. When you have that 10:30 start out there in California and you're driving until about midnight, 1 a.m., you got to be ready to go. Got to engage for the long haul. and we're ready for it. Everybody, like Seth said, engage with us. Spinnable Sports YouTube channel, spinnablesports.com. Follow us on X/Twitter, whether it's the Irrational Conference Podcast, Spinnable Sports, our individual ones. We want to hear all from you, good, bad, and different. Engage with us all across the board. Spread the word, help us out, retweet, talk to us. We want to hear it all. Draft content, tournament stuff, anything else you want to talk about sports related, we're here for you. And on top of it all, never forget, want a big thanks to our sponsor, Champ Sports Pools. Don't forget to go with them, champsportspools.com/spinnable, and join the bracket pool. And with that, bye y'all.